live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I'm going to kind of move on from what we were talking about here for a second, Doc, but I wanted to make one final point. I wanted you to kind of evaluate this position from a psychological perspective, if you wouldn't mind. So I was thinking about some of these attacks, and we just had the 15th anniversary of the attacks on September 11th in New York, and I'm going to just kind of confess something here to the audience. While I paid attention to it, and I kind of remembered, like I do every year, where I was in college and what I was doing. I was trying to call my friend Jessica, who lives in Las Vegas now, but she was going to school just blocks away from where that happened, and there was no cell service. She couldn't talk to nothing. Everything was shut down for hours. But I didn't spend nearly as much time as I had in years past. And some of the news coverage I skipped over, and if I'm being completely honest, I had the thought of, okay, it's been 15 years. Let's not remember this as an important thing, but it's been 15 years, kind of in the same way that we don't remember Pearl Harbor, we don't remember December 7th as a day that lives in infamy. We don't think about that as much anymore. It's been venerated, it's been mythologized. That's what's going to happen to September 11th in another 40 years, and that the effect of that tragedy has kind of washed over me. It's not as poignant for me as it was in the years immediately following the September 11th attacks. And I think a large part of that has to do with these lone wolf attacks that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, where every single time it happens, it's a new panicked, outraged, terroristic thing, as opposed to one discrete event that exists in history that over time we can kind of, once again, if I'm being completely honest, forget about. You
can move on from.
Right. What psychological, maybe it's a defense mechanism. What are the implications there? What are we seeing? We're not seeing 5 9/11s, obviously. That would be a disaster. But we're seeing something that seems to hurt us worse or undermine our faith in ourselves worse than 9/11 ever did.
Well, and in a way, I would agree. Well, I do. I do agree with Blake, and I hate doing that. The truth of the matter is, though, is I think a lot of this stuff is being driven by the media trying to drum up sales. Oh, look, another radical Muslim. Oh, look, Islam's good. It's only a couple of whack jobs. All this stuff, and you have the response from both sides. And right now, and you have to keep in mind, you and I have talked about this, and I'm going to say it this way. Both of our sides have our radicals, and the more our society goes on, the more radicalized your side gets, the more radicalized my side gets. And I'm not talking about mainstream folks, because the truth is, Blake and I, we hold our values, but for the most part, we can agree on a lot of stuff. But both sides are getting radicalized. And part of the thing is when you start radicalizing, you start thinking that, geez, you're doing the right thing. And one of the things that we know from these lone wolf terrorists is they don't view themselves as evil people. They think that they're doing the right thing. They think that they are helping bring peace to the world. Honest to goodness, that's what they think. And that is how they justify these terrible, terrible acts. If you look at what my war hero is General Patton, and if you look at his memoirs, his diary that he wrote, War as I Knew It is the book. He talks a lot about, I am going to go commit atrocities that nobody can ever imagine, yet why I'm doing it is to bring a quicker end to this war so that women, children, and innocents can be protected. Now, we happen to be on the winning side there.
Right.
But the bottom line is that's how these sides are lining up. And if you look at ISIS propaganda, I don't encourage you to do it unless you have a strong, cultural core. But if you look at their recruiting websites, they make it sound like, man, it's just the best thing ever. It reminds me a lot of the recruiting videos you get from the military, and particularly during World War II. Oh, protect the motherland, protect your culture, protect your religion. And that's how it's sold. And it's really getting to the point where it's too bad, because you're taking a lot of really good, promising young men, and unfortunately starting to become the women, and you're ending their lives soon. And it's just a sad commentary.
Here's a question that's occurred to me. So we're seeing it. There hasn't been. I don't know that it's responsible. So there's been an uptick, but certainly it feels like it, right?
There is. They call it an acceleration, where suddenly there's more attacks in a unit at a time, and we can tell over the last 2 years that's been happening.
But so over the last 2 years, and especially over the last 9 months or so,
yes,
ISIS in Iraq and Syria has been severely scaled back. They just lost Mosul. The Iraqi army has been beating them soundly all over the place. They've lost a lot of the territory that they'd gained over the last 2 years, and they're losing a ton of money. They're taking back oil field. I mean, the ground offensive against ISIS is becoming effective. We just killed one of their top guy, like the top guy, who's not al-Baghdadi, just recently. Do you think that has anything to do with the so-called uptick that we've seen? If so, that means that any kind of like link at all, any sort of like sympathy that people have, these lone wolf folks have with ISIS, that's only going to get worse, right? The more desperate that folks seem, that the movement is being destroyed.
Unfortunately, I only got about a minute to answer that question. And the answer over there is much more complicated. If you look at the real scaling back of ISIS, really pushing back, really didn't start to seriously occur until the Russians just started randomly bombing everybody. They're doing in Syria what we did in Vietnam and Korea, just carpet bombing, blanket bombing, everything. So you're also getting a giant collateral damage. Number two, this guy was radicalizing, from what I understand, at least 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. Before all this happened.
That's what's so crazy.
And so the thing is I get back to the Russians. This is one of their MOs. They put people into other countries that will become their citizens. And then if they need them, then they will have them do whatever.
Well, hold on. Don't suggest that this guy was affiliated with ISIS when he moved here because ISIS didn't exist then.
Hang on. I'm not. But what Stratfor has pointed out is there are a lot of people that are here that are second generation and some first generations that are really disillusioned with what America has turned out to be. They are unhappy with our institutions. They are unhappy with the life that they're living. They are unhappy that they are unfulfilled. And that's what we know with a lot of these bombers. And so they turn to something else, and it happens to be radical Islam. And the problem is going to be you have these naturalized U.S. citizens that don't understand the American way, and they are angry, and I'm going to help. I'm going to change my country into something that I can more accept. And that's really what it is. So it's really a sad commentary. I think it's really sad. One of the things I want to point out, you can turn in your son, you can turn in people, but until they've actually done something, the FBI and law enforcement really can't do anything. All they can do is watch. And no matter how closely you're watched, you can still get away with it. I think about that guy with that giant pot house up by the Hyperion Club.
Yep.
Guy, they had 2,000 pounds of pot plants in a luxury neighborhood, and it had been going on for years. And people had complained for years of the smell. Well, how are you going to get a hold of a guy who can build a bomb, using materials that aren't even going to take up as much space as my microphone?
And yet there seems to be resources for folks to remove kids from homes where they're riding around in the street by their house with no adult supervision. There seems that seems to be able to happen, and that's actually happened. That's not just me being a curmudgeon.
Oh yeah, and so we really, I do think. And then we'll get to this next segment. What really should we be worrying about? I mean, I get it. We're going to be talking politics and Hillary and Trump and Cruz and Bernie and the rest of it and the rest of the show. But really, what should we be paying attention to? That's going to be what we're going to be talking about when we come back after this break. We couldn't do what we do without you. We want to thank you, the listener. We'll be back right after.